What is going on, traders? Welcome back to the Traveling Trader. Happy Tuesday to you. I had a nice long weekend. Actually went skydiving for the first time. It was crazy, but awesome. Let's get right into it. So I am going to be talking about Bitcoin. That's going to be the highlight of this video, and I'll be doing some pretty detailed analysis as to why I think there's going to be a huge move coming. I'm actually almost certain of it, and I'll go over why that is based on the indicators. And then I'll go over the obvious situation as it relates to the oil supply, how we made a killing off of crude oil ETFs. Oil prices skyrocketed yesterday after this attack on Saudi oil fields, but they are now retracing. And will the Fed actually cut interest rates once again? Nobody knows. I actually don't believe that this is priced in fully because no one knows the extent of a rate cut if there is going to be a rate cut. Some are saying it's going to be 0.5%. Some are saying it's going to be 0.25%. Some are saying that the Fed won't cut rates at all. Trump obviously wants zero interest rates. Nobody knows. So I don't actually think it's priced in because there isn't an expectation here. So we will see what that yields. But let us get right into Bitcoin. So looking at Bitcoin, let's look at the long-term chart first. It is forming an almost perfect symmetrical triangle on the 1 week. It's also forming a symmetrical triangle on the 1 day. And I'll go over the symmetrical triangle and why that's an important pattern. Usually in symmetrical triangles, what you want to see is what is the trend that preceded this, right? That came before the symmetrical triangle. And in this case, on the 1 week, we had a rounding bottom, and then we have a trend line upwards, right? So the pole of the symmetrical triangle, this is actually more of a pennant on the 1 week than a symmetrical triangle because it does have a pole, and the pole is bullish, right? So the symmetrical triangles or pennants are considered continuation patterns, right? Where the traders are just exhausted of going one way or another, and you see this consolidation. It's usually followed by a decline in volume, and you see that here, right? Almost at the entry of the pennant, you see a major decline in volume, and that is when you expect a breakout is near the apex of the triangle. Now, if you've never seen this site before, it's called the Pattern Site. This has been one of my favorite sites for a long time now. It's actually run by Thomas Bukowski, who is a legend in his own right as it relates to technical analysis. He came up with a lot of indicators as well as his research on patterns and how often they break out and to what direction they break out is just unparalleled. He's written many books about trading as well, but if you go to the Pattern Site, you'll see that for each pattern, based on a series of trades, over thousands of trades, he actually gives a percentage as to which patterns break out in what direction, what percent of the time, right? So you'll see here on symmetrical triangles, the breakout is upwards 60% of the time, and it usually occurs 73% on the way to the triangle apex, which if we look on the 1 day where you have the symmetrical triangle, right, it usually happens based on his research 73% of the way to the apex. In this case, we're almost all the way to the apex, but he's saying that it breaks out 60% of the time. And from my experience, it usually is also determined by the trend that preceded it. So sometimes you'll see symmetrical triangles coming from a downtrend, and then you'll have the continuation pattern and then a further break to the downside. In this case, we have an uptrend continuation pattern, and we will see most likely an upside break here. Now, this also happens to coincide, the apex of the triangle happens to coincide with a potential backed announcement. As you know, backed entered its custody deposits on earlier this month. I think it was like September 6th with an expected launch date of September 23rd. And that will occur September 23rd will happen. If you look at the date at the bottom of this chart here, you'll see that September 23rd is right almost at the apex of this triangle here. It's almost exactly at the apex of that triangle, coincidentally. So, the perfect situation when you're trading is when there's a technical setup that is then catalyzed by a further fundamental piece of news. So we'll go over the oil prices in a minute and how we made almost 50% on UWT's jump yesterday, but it's the same thing, right? It had a perfect technical setup. So regardless of whether the Saudi oil fields were hit or not, it was a good price to buy. It's just that the extent of the rally and the speed of the rally was further catalyzed by a fundamental event. So same thing here. Now, I do believe Backed is priced in somewhat, but there's still uncertainty over whether it will be launched just because we've had so many fake outs in history, right? About this topic. So there could be a chance that it's further delayed. And if so, that I think will have a negative effect on price because it's not priced in yet. But I don't think everybody has 100% confidence that it will be approved. So I don't think it's priced in fully. Now, if Backed wasn't a thing and we're looking at this this pattern here, right? And the price action that's occurring within this pattern, it's still the break to the upside is still more likely, especially if you look at the research on history of symmetrical triangles, right? It's still a likely upside break. You have all of the requirements or all of the qualities that you see in a symmetrical triangle, right? Even the volume, it says trends downward 86% of the time. So while it is consolidating within this triangle, you see that when we started the triangle, volume was up here, and now we are all the way down here. So volume is definitely trending down. This is what you expect to see before a major breakout. Now, could it break to the downside? Yes. An upside break, according to Bukowski, is only valid 60% of the time, right? The other 40% will be a downside break. So it could break to the downside, especially if Backed comes out and or Backed doesn't come out and is actually delayed. We could see a downside break to at least this level here, this historic support level that we see here that we've hit a few times since July at around 9,100 or so. And that would coincide with the 21 EMA on the weekly, which is currently at around 9,300. So the 21 EMA continues to increase. As I've been saying for weeks now, once we retest the 21 EMA, it actually might not be so bad because the EMA weights more recent price action heavier, right? So this continues to climb a lot quicker. It reacts to price a lot quicker on the end of the EMA than, say, a simple moving average does. So, now we're at 9,300, and if the price retraces to 9,300, it's not the end of the world. But back when the EMA was at, say, 7,900, if Bitcoin went from 14,000 to 7,900, that would have been pretty bad news, at least as it relates to traders' perception, right? So why else are we expecting a big move for Bitcoin? Well, look at Bitcoin's volatility. You'll see here an article on Forbes, Bitcoin volatility drops to lowest since May, but we can actually take a look at the volatility charts. I've showed this before, bitvol.info. This is one of your most valuable resources if you're trading Bitcoin. And I was saying this, over the last few videos that we are now reaching below 3% volatility. And what you see before big moves, we had a big move in April, we had a big move in June on Bitcoin. And you'll see right before those moves, we have this sort of inverse BART pattern on the volatility where there's just a sudden drop in volatility and then the big move happens, right? And that is essentially what we're seeing here now. We were trending at 3%, a little above, and then now we are at the beginning of this drop here, similar to what we saw the last big moves. Now, volatility is not going to tell you direction of Bitcoin, so it doesn't tell you that Bitcoin's going to form a bullish breakout or break to the downside, but it does tell you that a big move is coming, and we're now at 2.58%. This is wild. Now, in terms of trading Bitcoin, how I'm playing this, well, sometimes the best trade to make is no trade at all. And if you want access to the trade alerts where I send out all these levels and how I'm trading crypto along with stocks, link is in the description. Looking at Bitcoin now, it is in such a low volatility, and we could see this more on the smaller time frames, but it is in such a low volatility sideways range that you could scalp here, but sometimes, like I said, the best trade to make is no trade at all, because the direction, there isn't really a direction. It's trading in such a tight range over the recent period. So right now I'm actually off of of Bitcoin. I will consider a long if we actually touch this support point here of the symmetrical triangle with a pretty tight stop limit, obviously below the support. I'll definitely consider a long if we eventually break the symmetrical triangle and retest this 9100 that we've hit 3 times already in the last couple months or so. But yeah, I'll be sending all of that in the trade alerts. So link is in the description. Sign up if you want access to that. So in summary, I do think that we are preparing for a big move, and the most likely direction is upwards, right? I do think we're preparing for a big direction of move upwards to at least retest this 14K by the end of the year. All right, let us look at some alts real quick. Now, it's very important that you pay attention to Bitcoin dominance as it relates to alts versus BTC price. We did have a couple of really successful trade alerts on Ethereum against BTC, which is now breaking out, as well as Litecoin BTC. I sent those out on the Discord here. We actually started scaling into LTC BTC last week, but yeah, I sent out the ETH BTC trade alert here yesterday because ETH was showing bullish divergence on the 1 day. There was divergence between the price, RSI, and MACD. You see the price making lower highs and the RSI making higher highs as well. The RSI making higher highs and the MACD making higher highs. The volume is trending upwards again. You see this nice healthy green volume here, and we popped above the 50 moving average for the first time in over 3 months. The 4-hour looked bullish as hell as well. If you look at the 4-hour, you'll see that there was a golden cross between the 50 and the 200 MAs. We broke above this inverse head and shoulders neckline that you see here, right? There was an inverse head and shoulders, and we broke above the neckline as well. So there was double confirmation on multiple time frames, and you see on the more granular time frames how violent the upward volume is here. This is the OBV, or on balance volume. So there was definitely a great optimal entry for ETH, and we took advantage of that and sent that out in the trade alerts. But what I was saying with Bitcoin dominance is you want to pay attention to this because, you know, we are hitting resistance that we saw 2 years ago, back in June 2017, over 2 years ago. We were hitting levels that we saw then. This, if you remember, if you were around crypto back then in the middle of 2017, this is when Bitcoin dominance tanked. That's when the alt season began, right? And it allowed alts priced against BTC to reach, some of them reaching all-time highs during that level. So I'm not saying that we're there yet, but I'm not even saying that we'll see an alt season all around. Some alts are probably dead for a very long time. However, there are at least the top alts, or the more recognizable alts, I think we'll start seeing a resurgence in the same way that ETH and Litecoin are, especially if this continues to go down, right? I'd like to see Bitcoin dominance go a little bit under 70%. At least retesting some of these moving averages here to give some of the top alts a chance to breathe. So I'm paying attention to this very heavily and factoring it into when I'm going to start taking profits on these alts priced against Bitcoin that we entered at optimal levels. All right, I'll give you guys one more trade. And the last crypto I'll talk about, XRP. We continue to make a killing on XRP because it is one of the more recognizable patterns in crypto, right? It hits this between 23 and 25 cent level. This has been happening for over a month now, but it hits this level of between 23 and 25 cents and then rises to between 27 and 28 cents. So you can scalp a good 8 to 12% on XRP priced against USD. And we are now back up at around 28 cents. And obviously we did buy the dip on XRP. I sent that out a while ago, actually. All right, let's take a quick glance at the traditional markets. UWT, as I said, made a killing for us. This is the ETF that follows crude oil. We bought in our usual level. You see the support level here. I bought in at around $11 on Thursday. Sent out a trade alert for that as well on our Discord. You'll see here, this is from last Thursday, buying UWT and playing the same successful swing we've been doing for months. So this is actually a freebie I'm giving you here. But yeah, if you want access to the trade alerts, again, sign up, link is in the description. It hit my trailing stop and I exited for around 42% profits. It is now retracing a bit as there is some encouraging news that Saudi Arabia will be able to replenish the oil supply that it has lost as a result of the attack. Who knows if that's true or not? I'll continue to play the technicals on UWT UWT. Like I said, when a fundamental event occurs, that's just icing on the cake, right? It boosts the extent and the potential of money making on a certain setup. But if the setup is already there, you can justify an entry. And if a fundamental event occurs on top of that and it moves in the direction that you were expecting, then it works in your favor by exacerbating the gains and the extent of that rally, right? Like I entered UWT thinking that we'd make, 5%, 10%. I wasn't expecting a 50% jump yesterday, but that fundamental event worked in our favor. Also looking at precious metals again, as they are having a healthy retracement after a major bull rally on most precious metals. We're talking about gold, silver, in this case, platinum here. Looking at the indices, you'll see the Dow is down about 0.1%. S&P relatively unchanged, so is NASDAQ. There's a lot of uncertainty based on what could happen with the Fed. Is the Fed going to cut interest rates? Are they not going to cut them at all? Will it be 0.25%? Will it be 0.5%? Will it be zero, as Trump said that he wanted? Who knows? But I do think there will be a pretty significant market move here within the next couple of weeks due to that announcement. All right, that is it for this video. Go ahead and leave a comment if you have a question, agreement, disagreement, whatever. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Leave a thumbs up if you got anything out of this video. If you want access to the trade alerts, link is in the description. If you need help with technical analysis and want one-on-one training with me, we do that over video conference. I usually have a couple spots open up by the end of the month for the following month. So ask me about October. Stay safe out there, traders. Peace.